Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today. And before I begin, so I'll be using this as a whiteboard and I will write some things over here and explain that way. So I'd like to start by asking you, what does desire management mean to you? So when you hear this word desire management, that's our topic. So what is the need for desire management, or what is desire management? Why do we need to manage our desires? Any thoughts anyone has? Okay, thank you. We have limited time and resources, and we have how many desires? Unlimited desires, yes. So in one sense, desire management can be said to be desire selection. We all have to select desires. Even if somebody is completely materialistic, even they cannot fulfill all their desires. So, okay, I want to see this place, I want to meet this person, I want to pursue this career, I want to buy this kind of car. So, they are all desires. But nobody can fulfill all their desires. So, in that sense, everybody has to learn to manage their desires. Okay, good point. Anything else? Anyone else? What or why desire management?
All desires not.
Sorry?
All desires not.
Yeah. So desires can be undesirable. Isn't it? Some desires can be undesirable. Isn't that? They can be counterproductive, they can be harmful to us. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So often the desires point us toward temporary things. And those things will go away at the time of death. Or will be taken away at the time of death. Maybe even before also at death. So that is a problem. Anything else?
Sometimes the desires cost much more than what it's worth, the efforts and time and energy that we have.
Yes. True. You can say the price is much greater than the price. So what they cost is far more what they give. Good point. Yes, true. Some desires are impractical. In the sense that they're just not implemented. Somebody is 4.5 feet and I want to become a basketball player. That's not going to work unless you create a basketball for dogs separately. Yeah. So they are not always fulfilled. You may have key desires, and if you do not have the karma or the qualification for it, then the desire may not be fulfilled or will not be fulfilled. Okay, correct. Anything else? Okay. So our desires determine our decisions, and then our decisions determine our destiny, well said. And then if, depending on if the desires are good, then everything following will be good, otherwise it will not be. Anyone else?
Uncontrolled desire may cause havoc inside.
Sorry? Uncontrolled desire?
Havoc inside.
Havoc inside. So uncontrolled desire, yes. It's not only inside, it can cause havoc outside also. But yes, inside, definitely. Inside.
Material desires create a bondage and trap us into this material world.
Okay, they cause bondage and so okay, material desires. They bind us in the okay. Thank you.
Understanding the good desires and making them prioritizing and so that they can be addressed. Otherwise, in other things, like they will be neglected. Good desires also.
So we need to have good desires, part of desire management is that good desires need to be nourished, they need to be strengthened. Yes, true. So material desire leading to bondage, that is from a philosophical perspective we can say yes, we all get bound. But even from a psychological or a practical perspective we can say there's addiction. Where you will not be bound in the material world, are bound to the material world, we are bound to specific things in the material world also. So in that sense, it's not just a philosophical concept. It's also something which everybody experiences, not personally, in their observation with others. Thank you. Very good point. Any last point anyone has? So yes, you all given very important reasons why we all need to learn to manage our desires. So I'll talk about this based on two distinct verses from the Bhagavad-gita, which actually seem to say almost opposite things. But we will see how these two are to be reconciled. This is 334, 333 and 334. So I'll explain the meaning of the verse and then we'll decide it. So Sadrusham Cheshtate Swasyaha. Sadrusham means according, this is how it does. Cheshtate, Cheshta is endeavor. We all have desires, we endeavor. Swasyaha. Swasyaha means according to one's own. Sadrusham Cheshtate Swasyaha. Prakriti is Swasya is one's own nature. So everyone endeavors according to their nature. Prakriti Jnanavanati. So even if somebody is knowledgeable and somebody understands okay, these desires are external, they are superficial or whatever, still the desires come. So in one sense, knowledge itself does not excuse us of desires or free us of desires. Prakrite Jnanavanapi. And if this is the way of the wise, then that is the way of everyone else also. That if, say, doctors smoke, then everyone else is going to smoke. You say doctors know better than everyone else how harmful smoking is. Prakriti Yanti Bhutani. Bhutani is all living beings. All living beings act according to their desires. Prakriti Yanti Bhutani. Nigraha. Nigraha means control, regulation, repression. Kim, what? Karishyati. What will it do? What will it accomplish? Nigraha kim karishyati. Let's recite it once more. Sadrusham cheshtate swasyaha. Prakrite jnanavanapi. Prakriti yanti bhutani. Nigraha kim karishyati. So this verse seems to be saying something like this, that if you were to depict it diagrammatically. So this is a person, and that person may also be a wise person, Jnanavan. But this is basically the path of natural desires. So everybody will go on this path. Prakriti yanti bhutani. So everybody not only says these desires and endeavors. This is cheshtati. So we all have many desires. Some desires, like you mentioned, are impractical, so we don't endeavor to fulfill. But even when we endeavor to fulfill, he's saying that everybody goes along the path of their natural desires. And it's more of their natural desires. And he's saying here basically this force is essentially so strong that even if we build something like a nigraha, this is repression. This force will be such that it will break down that force and move on. Nigraha kim karishyati. So now, so this seems to say that, okay, you have a desire, you have to go along with your desires. What can you do about it? There was one so-called spiritual leader of India. He said this phrase, Nigraha Kim Karishyati. This is the essence of the Bhagavad. Whatever you have desire, do it. Preparation won't get accomplished. So Gita says just do it. Just do whatever is yours. Now, is that the essence of the Gita? Why not? Where? Yeah?
His desire was to not fight. He was
Okay. That's a good observation. So, if you see, the Gita, when we talk about natural desires, generally there is content, what is spoken, and there is context in which it is being spoken. So, if you look at the content of this verse, it does seem to say, what is the point of doing anything with your desires, in any way trying to control? But the very next verse, what does it say? When you look at what comes before, what comes after, and then you have to understand the meaning in context. So let's look at this next verse. Indriyasya. Indriyasya is what? Indriya is senses. Indriyasya. Indriyas arthe. Artha is object. So senses and sense object. Indriyasya indriyasyarthe. Indriyasya indriyasyarthe. Raga, dvesha. Raga is attachment. Dvesha is aversion. I like this. I detest this. I dislike this. I loathe it. I hate it. Raga, dvesha, vyavasthita. So vyavasthita means that it is already there, but the raga and dvesha, vyavasthit, vyavasthit means properly. It needs to be properly regulated. Raga dvesha vyavasthita. Raga dvesha vyavasthita. So why does it need to be regulated? Tayor means these two. Na vasham agachet. Vasha is control. Don't go under their control. Don't get controlled or captivated by them. Tayor na vasham agachet. Tau is these two. Ya asya. So the word asya comes thrice. Indriyasya, indriyas arthe. The Gita is poetic, and one of the poetic characters of poetry is that there are poetic ornaments. So when there's a repetition of the use of the same word. So tau ya asya paripanthinav. These are obstacles on the path. These are paripanthi actually means thieves of the path. So these are dangers. Tau ya asya paripanthinav. Tau ya asya paripanthinav. So let's recite it together. Let's say once. Indriyasya indriyasyarthe. Indriyasya indriyasyarthe. Raga dvesha vyavasthito. Raga dvesha vyavasthito. Tayor navasham agachet. Tayor navasham agachet. Tavyasya paripanthinav. Tavyasya paripanthinav. So, Krishna, what he seems to be saying over here is that even when we are going on this path, actually there are thieves. One thief on one side, one thief on the other side. This is Raga and Dvesha. So he says that na vashamagachet. So Nigraha can mean Vasha. Nigraha means control, regulate. And he says, don't come under their control. Or previous verse he says, what can control accomplish? And then this verse he is saying, don't come under their control. So basically, what is he telling over here? So we could say, these two verses, we could say they are talking about two sides of a pendulum. So one is controlling desire. The other is being controlled by desire. Now specifically, here Krishna is talking about controlling desire in terms of to the point of repressing. So he's saying that both of these need to be avoided. So 333 is if you're just controlling, that's not good. But on the other hand, if you just let yourself be controlled, I like to eat this, I eat that. I don't like to eat that, I won't eat that. I like to watch this, I watch this. I like to do this, I do this. I don't like to do that, I won't do that. Says if we just go along with simply our likes and dislikes, we will not get anywhere in life. So in between these two is basically, if you consider these two to be the extremes of a pendulum, the central point is what we are trying to discuss. It is desire management, and that is selecting desires. It is we don't have a one approach that control all desires, nor is your desires come I have to be controlled. We have to be selecting our desires. And in the context of the Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna that you are a warrior, you are a Kshatriya. You are by nature a protector. But in your duty as a protector, right now, you have to face those whom you don't want to fight with. Who are they? Bhishma and Drona, his guru and his grandfather. So that's why you're thinking, I will not fight. But by nature, you are a protector. In future, when you hear about the Kauravas doing atrocities against innocent people, at that time the protector in you will rise and will want to fight it. So, you cannot not act according to your natural desire to be a Kshatriya. So that is not talking about any and every desire. Kriti refers to the natural desire which is according to one's work. We will discuss that later. And then he is saying in this particular verse, even when you are a Kshatriya, some battles you may like to fight, some battles you may not like to fight, but don't come into them. So even when there is something that we like to do, it is not that we will like everything about it. Even when we like a job, it's not that everything about the job we like. I like everything about this job except everything. So, for some people, that is the situation, they are totally losing. They say, I like everything about this job except the boss. Okay, or except this colleague, or except this. So, in this world, there will never be an ideal situation where everything will be like you. So basically, with respect to selective desires, let's try to understand how this works. So Krishna will talk elaborately about desires in the next section. But he's talking about a particular category of desires. So if you consider, say, this is the soul, this is the mind. Now I'm using the mind as a shorthand for the entire subtle body. I don't want to get the complexity of that. And then here there is the body. And all this together is the conditioned self. So Prabhupada would use the word Atma to refer to the soul, and he would refer the living entity to refer to the conditioned soul. And then outside, we may have many objects. So, these are objects, and maybe for this, for one of these we feel raga, for another there is dvesha, for another again there is raga, again there is dvesha. So basically, we like some things, we don't like some things. So now, these likes and dislikes are stored in our mind, in our subtle body. And in this subtle body, we could say there are two kinds of desires. Is this color visible? So the terms may vary for these, that we could call this as vritti. In English, the word is instincts, and there is vasana, and this is impulses. So I'll go into that soon, but let's look at it specifically here. Generally, how do things work? From the soul, consciousness is what comes out. So from the Atma comes Chaitanya. And Chaitanya goes to the Manas, then it goes to the Sharir, and it comes to the outer world. So for example, if I consider, say this flashlight is the soul, the Atma, and the beam of light coming from it is the Chaitanya, is the consciousness. So consciousness comes from the soul and goes out through the mind. Then it goes out through the karmendriyas. Let's go out through the karmendriyas or the gyanendriyas. You know what are the gyanendriyas? Eyes, nose, nostrils, skin, and ears. What are the karmendriyas? And legs, the respiratory organs, and the power of speech. So basically, normally consciousness first goes through the gyanendriyas. And say, right now you are hearing me. And you take that information, consciousness goes out and comes in. And it takes in the information, you notice, okay, I'm asking a question. Then you answer the question. When you answer the question, the consciousness again comes out. And this time it comes out to the karmendriyas. Your tongue speaks something and some words come out. So basically, consciousness is always flowing in and out. There's pravaha. The AC decrease slightly. Okay. So there's constant pravaha of the consciousness. And quite often we tend to think that the object triggers desire in us. That is true, but the object is not the cause of the desire. The objects that are there, these are triggers. They are not causes of desires. What does that mean? That it is not that the object that is filled with desire and the object desire is injected into our consciousness. No. So for 10 years now, I have been traveling across the world. So 2014 I started going to America. And whenever I give classes, I often give contemporary examples. So when I am in India, I often give examples of cricket. So when I went to America, especially when I was speaking to American audiences, the organizers told me, don't give any cricket examples here. I said, why is that? I said, is it that Americans like baseball more and they don't like cricket? I said, that is true, but not that they don't like cricket. For them, cricket is an insect, it's not a game. So, what happens is that if there is no impression inside the mind of cricket, when you see cricket, there is no desire coming for it. Okay, somebody is playing, somebody is doing something in a field. But for Indian, they see cricket, okay, what's going on? So, it is not that the external object is the source of desire. There are impressions inside us. Suppose somebody passes by a bar. Now they are never drunk, they have no interest in drinking. They pass by the bar, they will see the bar, but there is no desire that comes. If somebody is an alcoholic, they pass by a bar, then there is no bar for them to go to the bar. Sarva Dharman Parityajya. So they just straight rush into the Lord. So the difference is what is inside their consciousness. So inside our consciousness, there are impressions. And those impressions, so to put it another way, that say, if this is the mind, and let's focus on the mind now. If there is a samskar over here, some kind of samskar, let's keep one over here. Then when the conscious, let's say the input from the consciousness comes in, it might be small over here, but as it goes through it, it becomes bigger. And then by the time it reaches the soul, it has become the most important thing. Like I said, for an alcoholic, the input goes in through the eyes, goes through the mind, and by the time it comes out, it's become huge. So the mind actually does two things. Mind is the transmitter of consciousness. And this consciousness goes from the soul outward and comes back in. But it is not just a transmitter, it is also a transformer of consciousness. Transformer means that some stimuli, when they come in, they become very big. Some stimuli, they don't become big. Some stimuli, they don't even go in only. So, the mind is a transformer of consciousness. And depending on what is present within the consciousness, that thing will either go up or come down. So for us, what is inside the consciousness will determine what becomes big, what stays small, or what just disappears. So, with this background, now let's look at these two things, vritti and vasana. So our desires, they have categories. So when Krishna is using the word natural desires, so natural, that means he's referring to is that we all have a swabhava. We all have an innate nature. And this natural is referring to it under the varna. We all have some talents, some abilities, some interests. And accordingly, certain desires come up with us. So, these are natural to our body-mind mission. And then, these are what we call as vritti. Everybody has a vritti. Now, apart from this, there are other desires which could be called as artificial. I'll explain by artificial what it means actually. So, but let's try to understand the natural desires first. After the Pandavas won Draupadi in the Swayamvar, then they left the royal palace and came back to a small cottage where they were living temporarily in one room in the house of Brahman. Draupadi's father and brother were naturally concerned who has Draupadi married. They looked like Brahmanas, in the sense that they were dressed in the garb of Brahmanas. They had sat in the category of the Brahmanas, but they were very well built, and their skill in archery and mace fighting was extraordinary. So they decided to test the Pandavas, and then they called the Pandavas to their home, to the palace basically, for a banquet, a feast. And Draupadi invited them and took them to a long room and seated them, and he said, I'll just be back. And he left, and the Pandavas sat over there, looked around. And on the opposite side of the hall, a huge hall, majestic, jeweled decorations and paintings of ancient wars, big pillars, impressive architecture. But they saw on the opposite side there was a long table. And on that table, on one side, They kept scriptures and paraphernalia used for performing yajnas by the Brahmanas. Then next to it were various weapons, bows, arrows, maces, spears. Then next to it was various farming equipments, ropes and harnesses and yokes. And then on the other extreme were various artisans' tools. Now these four corresponded to what? The four Varnas. So the Pandavas around saw that table. All five, as if one, walked straight to where? The weapons. And he got to put up the base and started swinging it around. Then Yudhishthira picked up a spear. Arjuna picked up what? Arrow and started testing it. And then Nakul and Sahadeva picked up swords and other equipment. And soon they were indeed talking about this mace is strong, but it's not as strong as the mace that was there. And then they started comparing and talking about various weapons. And from a secret window, Drupada and Drishtadyumna had been watching. And as they were watching, their faces started smiling. These are Kshatriya, these are not Brahmins. So basically, what happens is we all have certain natural interests. So our Varna is seen if we note what we notice. We note consciously what we notice automatically. So, in all situations, wherever we go, some people come to a home, the first thing they notice is, okay, what kind of paintings are there? Somebody else will notice, okay, what kind of architecture is there? Some people say, okay, what kind of library is there? What kind of books are there? Some people say, okay, what gadgets are there? The TV, what model TV is there? What AC, what AC is there? So basically, we all notice certain things naturally. That means we don't have to put any effort. So it's like we all have some interests that are natural, and some interests they have to be cultivated. Like some people, some interests may be just okay. I like history, I like maths, I like language, I like art. It's just natural. And sometimes some subjects we have to get ourselves interested in those things. They are natural and they are cultivated. So, it is important what Krishna is telling Arjuna here, that when we are trying to manage our desires, the natural desires that we have, according to our swabhava, those need to be developed. These should not be repressed. If we repress them, then we will feel constantly suffocated. We cannot afford to repress these desires. This is swabhava jena kaunteya nibaddhasvena karma kartum nechasi anmohat karishyasya vishopita. Same thing Krishna will talk later in 1859 and 60. All of us will act according to our nature. And so there are two fundamentally different approaches to desire management. With respect to the desire that correspond to our bhaktis, there needs to be development. These desires need to be developed. And then there are desires associated with our vasanas. So vasana, I will talk about this development a little later. And we will continue with the session tomorrow morning also. But vasana, these refer to what? Lust, anger. What else is there? Greed. Then envy, pride, and illusion, etc. So these are the vasanas. But the terms may vary according to what is used where in Sanskrit and how it is translated in English. But if you see, I use the word vritti, instincts. Now everybody has some instincts naturally. Some kids, when he's 2 or 3 years old, they take up a kartal and start playing it. And he's played so well. Some other people, they be 20, they pick up a kartal and they start playing, and others say, when are you going to stop? So, the idea is that some people, some kids just have a musical instinct. So others, they don't have a single musical bone in their body. So, some people have instincts, and then there are impulses. The word instinct is also used in the biological sense. Like animals have some natural instincts. So birds can, if they just take it far away and left, they have instinct. Okay, where is my nest? They will whirl around a little bit and then straight go back. That's how birds do migration. So the instincts, it's almost like programmed intelligence. You just know what to do. Some people have a language instinct. They just speak what they want to speak and they speak it so precisely. Others just struggle and stumble over words and they can never articulate what they want to say. And then somebody else says, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So, why did you say it? I don't know. I can't even say why I couldn't say it. So the idea is, this is programmed intelligence. As contrasted with this, the vasanas they are not just unintelligent, they can even be anti-intelligent. Anti-intelligent means they can make us do things which no intelligent person will do. So, even when somebody is a painter, somebody is a writer, somebody is an interior decorator, somebody is an engineer, they may be good in their particular fields, but still they may be vulnerable to lust. Some people may be working in an office and they may have a good job and they have good ability for the job, but they get caught in affairs and this and that. Some people are just power hungry. They use their talent to lord it over others. That they just have pride and they have so much consideration of whether others are respecting me or not. Some people, they're just driven by greed. So, somebody may be a good doctor in the sense they may be competent as a doctor, but they may not be compassionate as a doctor. They may see their patients as simply sources of money. And such doctors can create a lot of trouble. What is that saying? Doctor cures your ills with your pills and then kills you with the bills. So, the idea is impulses are unhealthy. And with respect to the vasanas, there has to be a pathway. There has to be regulation. And regulation, ultimately, regulation means we have to create some boundaries. Now, anger may not go away in anyone completely. But anger is regulated. Say, for example, if we go to workplace, then we may get angry. But we are not going to yell at our boss. If we yell at our boss today, we'll have no one to yell at tomorrow. People will yell at us, why we yell earlier? So we have to be regulated in what we do. So now, from regulation, it can also go towards elimination. Those particular things may go away completely. But that is different from repression. Repression when the desire is there, is forcing it away. That's very different. So basically, what we are talking about here is, these are two different categories of desires and they have to be dealt with differently. So, each kind of desire, the first kind of desire is where it's vritti, it needs to be appreciated, it needs to be developed, it needs to be nourished so that it takes us upwards. And then The other kind of desire is the vasana. That needs to be regulated. So now, beyond this, see, these are, till now, I was talking about the soul, and then there is the mind. So in the mind, there are the vrittis and the vasanas. So we need to each difference of these, we could say, we need to develop these desires. So we develop these desires, we regulate these desires. Okay. So to develop, before we can develop, we need to appreciate first. Appreciate what are the natural things. What are our natural things? So appreciate. Then this, the vasana, we need to regulate. And then there is a third category of desires. These are the desires that come naturally from the soul. The soul has spiritual desires. These are the desires to love Krishna, to serve Krishna, to make Krishna our Lord, the Lord of our life. And now these desires, they need to be also developed. But they are a different category. They are not coming from the body-mind machine. They are not coming from the impressions within us. They are coming innately from within the soul, from who we are at our core. And these need to be gently but surely awakened. So slowly, gradually, they need to be awakened. So awaken. These are spiritual desires. So we could say that we want to, if you want to take another, if you want to make an acronym, enhance, regulate, awaken. So it's a ERA, E-R-A. Enhance the vritti, regulate the vasana, and awaken the Atma. Awaken the soul and awaken the soul's eternal desires. So I will I'll explain one more concept, and then how to go about doing these three things we'll discuss in tomorrow's session. We'll have some questions after this. But generally, say we talk about the two kinds of taste. What are the two kinds of taste? Yes? What are the two kinds of taste? You have heard the word taste? Is that a test? So which is there is a? Yes, okay, good. There is a higher taste and there is a lower taste. So, I was wondering what are you thinking about the taste? So, param drishtva nivartate, Krishna says. So generally we are told, go from the lower taste to the higher taste. But what happens for many of us, if we are here, there is going from the lower taste, the higher taste is too high up. And when we try to go to the higher taste, many times we have to take a high jump here. But instead of the high jump, we go up and we go further down. So, it just seems to be too difficult. So, what Shastras describe is actually in between. So, here, this is true, but it is this is a higher spiritual taste. This is a lower material taste. But you could say there is a higher material taste. Now, what do you mean by higher material taste? The lower material taste comes from the vasanas. So somebody has lust, just indulge in the lust, and they get some pleasure. Somebody has a lot of pride, and then they get power, and recognition, and prestige, and they feel a lot of joy. So that is the vasana. But there is some pleasure in that. But that takes us down, and often we take others down with it. The spiritual higher taste, it comes through bhakti, specifically as bhakti rises towards rati and prema, and the higher stages of bhakti, I would say. When it comes to the level of ruchi, basically we start getting a higher taste in bhakti. So, for many of us, the whole system of varnashram, it is not so much about dividing people into four groups. It is more about engaging people in such a way that they can get a taste where they are. So if, see nowadays, sometimes people ask, why are so many people depressed? That is not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, why is not everyone depressed? Life is so difficult. There are so many things wrong in the world, there are so many things wrong with us, so many more things that can go wrong. We are getting the negativity from everywhere in the world. The human mind is not designed to get so bombarded by so many bad news from so many places. So the question is, why is everyone not depressed? Sometimes people ask, nowadays pornography use is so much common. So why are so many people using porn? The question is, why is everyone not using porn? The lust is there in everyone and it's so easily available. So how is it that everybody is not doing it 24 hours a day? So, of course, I'm not saying it is a good thing to do. Yes, but the point I'm making is, why is it that when it is so easily available, why is everyone not doing it 24 hours a day? You say, okay, I have got a job, I have got family, I have got this. And there are so many people who are wealthy enough, they don't have to do anything. But still, they don't just indulge 24 hours a day. Because there is a part of us which wants something more. Okay, how many of you like humor? How many of you like humor? Humor, jokes. Jokes. If you don't like it, I'm a little concerned. So now, say you like humor, and there's a comedy show where there's humor. You may enjoy it. But somebody tells you tomorrow onwards, you have no financial obligation, no social obligations, no physical obligations, you eat as much as you want, don't become fat. No obligations. Just sit in front of a TV and for the rest of your life, watch comedy shows and laugh. Will you enjoy that? Or maybe if you're a little fed up 1 hour, 2 hours, you're really fed up for a weekend, you want something to do, isn't it? We all need to do something which matters, something of value. So it is natural for us. It's like we want pleasure, but we don't just want pleasure. We want meaningful pleasure. Just hearing jokes and laughing at you, what is a break? Maybe some tahara vihara, some entertainment is there. We don't want that for the rest of our life. So the idea is that we often say we are pleasure seeking. And that is true, but what we really want is meaningful pleasure. Not just meaningless pleasure. And that's why nowadays when they say that, nowadays social media shows here, people just mindlessly keep scrolling things. And that is true. But the question is that it's so easily available. Why is everybody not constantly scrolling? Because eventually, okay, I want to do something of value. So now, of course, if the vasanas are very strong, that urge for doing something meaningful may go away. It will be very strongly covered. But we all want to do something which is of value. Now, it may not be a whole-changing value, but I want to do something of value. And as a buddhi, when we understand that, when we develop that, then we can do something of value. So, when we feel that I am doing something of value, that gives us a higher taste. It may not be a spiritual higher taste. Like somebody is a doctor. They may not be a spiritual doctor, but they actually are interested in medicine. They like to care for people. But they of course want money. They spend so much money in getting the education. They want money. But their interest in treating the patients is not simply to get money. They get some joy in doing that. So then that joy will ensure that they don't become greedy or possessive or greedy or exploitative like that. So for every one of us, this material higher taste is also important. Now, of course, the material higher taste is not the ultimate thing. Because even with the material higher taste, we are going to die. And then this material higher taste is not going to take us to a higher destination. We're still in the material world. But this can be like a stepping stone. From the lower taste, of, say, just indulging in the senses, to the higher taste of doing something of value, to the ultimately higher taste of being absorbed in Krishna. So till now, I'll conclude this last one. Addiction is a huge problem in the world, and especially drug addiction is becoming very big. So in this, there is a, if you have heard of this 12-step program. In the 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous and all of them, they have this idea that the 12 steps. The first step is my life is out of my control. I need some higher power to intervene in my life, otherwise I will destroy myself. So they may say higher power according to my own understanding or according to one's own understanding. They don't accept it as Krishna. But so there is something spiritually bring. The idea of some higher intervention. But the second thing is, in the Scandinavian countries, they have been the most successful in the Western world in combating drug addiction. And what they did was, they focused on the rehabilitation. Generally, if somebody is a junkie, somebody is a drug user, then they don't get jobs very easily. Nobody wants to employ such a person. Once you are blacklisted as a drug user, no respectable place will want to employ. So what these countries did was, they said, yes, this person is a drug user, but if they told employers, if you employ this person, we will pay 50% of the salary. The government will pay 50% of the salary. And they found that when these drug users, not all of them, but many of them, when they were able to do some meaningful job, holding a job itself is not easy. Especially, say that in a country like India, there's no option. If you don't have a job, you won't be alive. But many of the European countries are welfare states. Welfare states means what? If you don't have a job, the government pays you. And it's not even you don't have a job. You don't have a job that you don't like. And if you say, I have not found a job that I like till now, the government will keep paying you. And people misuse that quite a bit. Many of the immigrants who are going from the Arabic countries to the West, they have no jobs and they have huge benefits that they get. That's why there's a lot of concern in Europe about immigration right now. But the point is that when people start holding responsible jobs, many of them, their addiction increases with discipline. Even in many American soldiers who had gone to Vietnam for the war, there the conditions were so horrible, the fear was so much, ambush attacks. Why were they in the wars? It was supposed to stop communism, but it was a very politicalized war. So many of the soldiers, they were given morphine to numb them of the pain. And the fear was that they would become addicted to it. And some did become addicted. When many of them came back home, they came back to their families, were integrated into society, they came out of morphines. So the point is, even, not all of them gave up, some of them became really addicted and they had lifelong addicts. But the point is, even a material higher taste. So both of these, so if people get some meaningful engagement and they have some higher power in their life, they connect with Krishna and so basically this is like connecting with Krishna. This is connecting with one's soul. So when we can do this, then we will find that our desires, specifically none of the vasanas, they will become easier to manage. We will be able to go beyond them. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. I talked about 4 main points. The first point, we started with the paradox in this verse, that controlling desire That is not healthy. Controlling desire, especially in terms of repressing it. And being controlled is also not healthy. This is based on 333 and 334 in the Bhagavad-gita. The Gita is telling us we need to do desire management. We need to select our desires. So how to select the desires? For that, I discussed about how. Where do desires come from? Desires, basically, something comes into the mind and then it becomes bigger. So there are impressions in the mind. And so the mind does two things to our consciousness. What does it do? Transmit and transform. So it allows things to go in and out, karmendra and jnanendriya, but in between it transforms. This is based on the impressions. A Sanskrit word for this is samskaras. And then we discussed about the different kinds of desire that are there. So within the mind, there are certain healthy desires and certain unhealthy desires. So what are the healthy desires called? Bhakti or instincts and vasana. And then beyond that, there is the soul. The soul has its spiritual desires. So we discussed that there are 3 steps with respect to what are the acronym? ERA. E-R-A. With respect to Bhakti, what do we do? Enhance the desires. This note consciously what we notice naturally. We discussed the Pandavas example. And vasanas, what do we do? Regulate that. And lastly, in spiritual desires, we awaken those desires. They may not be there, but we awaken them. And in this way, the last one we discussed is the journey from the lower taste to the higher taste, the lower material taste, and there is the higher spiritual taste. Sometimes this can seem a very big journey, so there is an intermediate step that we can have. That is the higher material taste. So this higher material taste can keep us moving till we get eventually the higher spiritual taste. So how to go on this journey, we'll discuss more in tomorrow morning session. Any questions or comments? Yes, please. Do we have a mic?
Thank you for the class. Actually, my question was that sometimes impulses are gift wrapped as instincts. So, while in relation that you enhance your vritti and regulate your vasana, but if you are not able to distinguish between both of them, you won't be able to properly know what to enhance and what to regulate.
Yeah, that is true. So it is a challenge. That's why, generally speaking, either we have to come to sattva or we need to be guided by somebody who's in sattva. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam, Krishna says. So sattva is the mode of goodness. It brings clarity. And we cannot always be in sattva. Life is busy. Life is demanding. The world around is fast-paced. So a significant part of our time in our life, we may be in rajas, we may be in the mode of passion. But at least for some time in the day, we need to be in sattva. And that's the time we make our major decisions in life. So sometimes it may happen that, okay, I'm walking along the road and I just see some food item and I want to go and eat it. You may go and eat it. That may not be good, may not be the healthiest food, whatever. But that is not going to be a huge problem in our life. But if the major decisions are made on the impulse, today I'm in the office, I have a bad interaction with my boss, I resign. That is not very healthy. Because in one day, nowadays people have, that's why the Dvandva Raga Dvesha is there. So we cannot take irreversible decisions. This is extremely dangerous. People take irreversible decisions based on reversible emotions. So today I feel this job is terrible. Tomorrow I feel this job is terrific. And today I resign and tomorrow I feel terrible also. So it's nowadays even relationships have become so fickle. So one day I love you, I cannot live without you. Next day I hate you, I can't live with you. So this is where recognizing that our emotions are fickle, they are reversible. Don't take irreversible decisions. So decisions point, major decision that we have to take, unity sattva. And in the sattva we have done some praying, we have really done some sattvic activity, the deep breathing, some journaling, going for a walk, doing our chanting, hearing some classes, spiritual talks. And sattva, then we can reflect, and then we can analyze which desire is which.
My question is, through the diagram you represented that you gave a flashlight example. You said that consciousness is coming out of the soul and then it goes to the mind-body machine, and inside we have like the vrittis and the vasanas. So if the consciousness is passing through the vrittis and vasanas, why do they not get spiritualized?
The soul is spiritual. Consciousness is the energy of the soul. And the consciousness will be affected by whatever medium it passes through. So Krishna, in the Vedanta Sutra also this is talked about that Atma is unchanging, but the Chaitanya is ever changing. So the Chaitanya is affected by whatever medium it is put in. That's in the 13th chapter of Krishna. Ichha, Dvesha, Sukham, Dukkham, Sambhatas, Chaitanya, Bhakti. He says this is material. He said that it is a transformation of material nature. So if somebody is born in South India, their Chaitanya comes to the South Indian body and mind, and whenever they think of food, they think of Indian sambar. When somebody is born in North India, whenever they think Punjab, whenever the Chaitanya comes out, food means parathas. So that Chaitanya is conditioned based on the kind of body mind machine. Yes, please. There is
how to identify and like differentiate between the vasana and vritti. Sometimes like we may think that it is my this happens with me many times. I feel like this is my kind of nature. This is natural. This naturally this desire is coming to me, and it might not be like that when I try to not have the requisite skills to proceed that.
okay. So I mentioned that if you want to talk about the sattva, being in sattva to self-observation. But generally speaking, the key difference between vritti and vasana, that vritti, if it is there, it gives us intrinsic satisfaction. That means if there is vasana, the satisfaction is always extrinsic. If somebody has a vritti for music, then they just want to listen to music, want to play some musical instrument, even if nobody recognizes them, even if nobody praises them. So that's what they do. But if somebody has a vasana, then I am producing so much music, why is nobody appreciating me? Why is everyone so dumb? Don't they understand how good I am? So now naturally, if anybody is doing something good, they want to be recognized. But there is no dependence on that. There's a famous author, he said that I get more satisfaction from having written than being read. So having written. Now of course every author who writes wants to be read. But it's a matter of where there is greater satisfaction. So intrinsic means in doing the activity itself there is pleasure. When the vasana is, it is only on getting the result. So Krishna says, Karmanye vadikaraste mahapaleshu kadachana. Do your duty, don't get attached to the result. That is not possible if somebody is driven by vasana. Say somebody has no interest in medicine, but somehow they got some degree and they're doing some They are treating some people. They may be good in it, but they are not getting no intrinsic satisfaction. Then, if they don't get money, if they don't get fame, if they don't get praise, they will be utterly miserable. Oh, why is this doctor getting more money than me? Why are more patients going to that doctor than me? Then that could be one concern. But you are healing people. You are saving people's life. That is of value. So they will not see any value in that. So that is one differentiation between Bhakti and Vasana. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, why is there a need to control material desires when we can focus on spiritual desires and they will get neglected naturally? We should just chant Hare Krishna.
Okay. That's a general question. I haven't discussed the whole point. I didn't bring material desires. I'm talking about immaterial also. There are two different categories, Bhakti and Vasana. So why is there a need to control? Krishna says that if we are only trying to control desires, it's not going to work. Yatoyapi kaunteya bhushasya vashita indriyani pramadhini haranti prasamam. Even if we are intelligent, even if we are endeavoring, if all that we are trying to do is control the desires, it's not going to work. At the same time, he says we need to have a basic level of control so that we can focus on spirituality. Ani sarvani sanyamya yukta asit matparaha. So, if you look at 261, he says, first is sanyamya. Tani sarvani sanyamya. Sanyamya, in one sense, it means control. So, if a line has if a verse has 4 lines, A, B, C, D, Tani sarvani sanyamya, then yukta asita matparaha. Matparaha is then focus on Krishna. So, if we do not have a basic control, we can't focus on Krishna. So, like right now, you're coming and hearing this class. The mind is super distracted, the senses are pulling in various directions. You won't be able to sit and hear this class also, isn't it? So, there has to be some basic level of control. Then we can focus on Krishna. And then what happens? Vashehi yasyendriyani asya pragyam pratishtita. Then there will be Vashe. Vashe means it's conquest. There's 3 steps. So you could say control, if you want to use 3 C's, control, concentration, conquest. There is basic control at a material level. Then there is concentration on the spiritual. And then there is conquest. So Vashe is seen. So we could say, another way to look at it is that for us, control is like a launching pad. Then the launch towards the spiritual. So if a rocket has to be launched, it has to have a firm foundation. If the foundation itself is fickle, collapsible, the launch cannot happen. Okay? Yes. So, yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you Prabhuji for the lecture. Prabhuji, my question is, you got the angle of spiritual desires also. So now, we all have healthy say. Let's consider an example of having good prasad, having good food, or listening to music. Now we have always heard when we come to spirituality, we just do all of those things spiritually. If you like music, then you start listening to Kirtan, and that's how you obtain our desires. So when we are obtaining those desires, is that what you are referring to as spiritual desires? Basically, my question is, what is the difference between our vritti and spiritual desires? Or in other words, it is so that when spiritual desires awaken, they ultimately transform into vritti, and then that becomes our vritti, and that's how we act out of, or it's different from what you refer as vritti?
Good question. See, there is a difference between spiritual desires and spiritualized desires. Spiritual desire means it's directly the desire of the soul for Krishna. So, in the spiritual world, the soul does not need a material body. The soul is naturally attracted to Krishna. So, these are, you could say, that intrinsically spiritual desires. So that this does not depend on the vritti. But we are right now in the material world. So around the soul there is the mind-body machine, and we use whatever is natural for us, also Krishna's service. So, for example, chanting and hearing. These are naturally spiritual desires because we are directly focusing on Krishna. Now, apart from that, somebody may do a seva of distribution, somebody may do a seva of cooking, somebody may do a seva of managing, somebody may do a seva of teaching, counseling. These are sevas which can do according to. So, at our stage, we don't have to really very rigidly differentiate. Yena kena prakarena anatkrishna. Somehow or the other fits the mind of Krishna. But the point is that whatever is our bhakti right now, somebody is a graphic designer and then they make very attractive posters for Krishna. It's not that in the spiritual world there will be a graphic design institute facility for us, isn't it? So there, it's the bhakti using Krishna's service, but gradually you will get a direct attraction. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Just you mentioned Varnashram system, Varnashram also. So, Varnashram is meant not for dividing people but engaging people. So, I want to understand how Varnashram is also related to Bhakti and Vasanas. So, but when in Bhakti also, the Bhakti on the devotional platform, I suppose is above the Varnashram system. So is it if somebody is on the platform of higher taste or something, so he is affected by those vasanas or vrittis or not, or how it is related to Varnashram system and then higher platform is related to vasana and vrittis?
Okay, good question. So two different things over here. See, the vasanas will definitely go down when we develop our spiritual, become the devotional pattern. But at the same time, the vritti will remain. So if you consider the Pandavas, now you consider Yudhishthir, and you consider Bhima. Yudhishthir was almost like a Brahman Kshatriya. That means Kshatriya is a warrior, but he was relatively a peaceful warrior. Try as much as possible to resolve things peacefully, try to tolerate. He's a Brahman Kshatriya. Bhima was a Kshatriya. A Kshatriya square. He was itching to fight. And their natures did not change just because they were elevated into this. So it is that while we are in the material world, there are certain aspects of our materially embodied condition that will remain. Say, if somebody has a dark complexion, is it that when they become pure, suddenly their complexion will become white? Well, no. They will look more brighter because they are so cheerful and energetic. But the complexion will remain the same. So there are certain aspects of our material embodiment which may not change. And they don't need to change. It's not that everybody has to be. Devotion means we are all harmonized. It doesn't mean that we are homogenized. Harmonized means we have one purpose. Homogenized means we are just one substance, we become one. So devotion doesn't homogenize us, it harmonizes us. And that's why there's a difference in terms of each person needs to have their bhakti and then use it Krishna service. And we don't have to worry too much about whether this is conditioned or whatever. As long as it is being used in Krishna's service, that is what matters the most. Okay? Do you want to do questions?
Was it during Gurukul system, how did the Guru identify the Varna of the child, and after knowing the child's Varna, how did he engage them in certain activities so that they will balance their spiritual and material?
We have to stop romanticizing the past. Life has always been complicated. And there's never past when the Guru had some magical power where they could perfectly take off. You're a Brahmana, you should carry your wish. It's always a challenge. It always takes time. So, in generally, the Varna can be understood by two things. There is Guna and there is Karma. So now Guna I can translate in many different ways. One way is competence. That means if we have the Guna to do something, if Guna is if we have the Guna for doing something, we are comfortable doing it. The Karma for doing something, there is competence in it. Comfort means it feels good doing it. Competence means we are good at doing it. Some people just like music. Now, some people may like music, but no one else likes their music. But that may happen. So they have the Guna, but they don't have the Karma. Not everybody who likes music becomes a celebrated musician. Not everybody who likes to write, some people just write a journal. They will not become a celebrated writer. So ideally speaking, if there is a combination of Guna and Karma, then this is the best indicator of our bhakti. What we feel good doing and what we are good at. And generally, if the Guru is observing carefully the children, then they can learn to some extent. Astrology could be used. Now, nowadays, astrology is used primarily for predictive purposes. And that is actually only a small use of astrology. Predictive means that okay, this will happen during this life, so do this, don't do this. But traditionally, astrology was used for indicative purposes, not predictive. Indicative means okay, this is it's an indication. This is likely to be your nature. So, and then another thing is, although Varna was not determined by caste alone, but caste was not insignificant factor. Because the idea is that if some Atma has a Brahminical nature, then that Atma is likely to be born in a family where the mother and father have a Brahminical nature. So in that sense, the Janma was also a relevant factor. The problem became that from a relevant factor, it became the dominant in the soul factor. That's where it became problem. So it is a challenge. And now, also, you could say in the past, whether it was India or the West, social mobility as we see it was not there. Whether it's upward mobility or it is lateral mobility. Like somebody coming from village to a city, somebody moving from one place to another place, somebody hoping to rise upward in the economic ladder. All that mobility was not there. People had a village, they had their role in the village and they did that. So generally, they were born and they took up the role that were the best for them.
Krishna Prabhuji, so actually I have two questions which I think might coincide with one of your answers. You mentioned about artificial desires, so I would like to have some clarity about it. And the second question is that from the era part that you explained is for enhancing our vritti, the things which we are good at. So, for example, like taking music, if we are we enjoy music or we are also good at it. But if we have certain tasks that are more important at that time to fulfill, but since we are enhancing our vritti, so how do we, manage that?
The second part will come tomorrow. How to implement this. What are the first questions?
Artificial desires.
Okay. Artificial, what I meant by artificial is that there are many desires. I said generally desires are not, they are triggered by outside. But many desires are often injected from outside. That means we see repeatedly advertisements. See, in one sense, lust. The word lust has a very negative connotation as well, and in traditional circles. But lust, in the sense of male-female attraction, is vital for sustenance. That's how reproduction happens. That's how life goes on. All living beings have lust. But in most animals, it is they get that desire when there's a mating season. You know, when a cow is in the heat, they have the biological desire coming up at that time. But it's not that they're constantly triggered. And it's not that there is something that is triggering them constantly. In our society, in our culture, the desires are being constantly triggered. So we are actually in a unnatural or artificial state of perpetual sexual stimulation because there is so much bombarding us constantly. Same way with respect to greed. There's so much bombarding by this, by this, by this, by this. So in that sense, when I said artificial, what I mean by is that they are unnaturally stimulated. It's not that in nature there is a endless parade of tempting sense objects constantly going into it. Yes, there are sense objects, but the way these cultures are in, they are constantly bombarding us. So in that sense, they are unnatural. Now, briefly, the other question which you had about vritti. See, the vritti can be somebody's profession. In English, there are two words. There is vocation and there is avocation. Avocation means it can be passion, it can be hobby also. So sometimes somebody may be able to do it as their job. Sometimes, okay, I just have some space that I need to do this. I may have to take up some other job. I may have some other responsibility. But sometimes I need to do this. That gives me strength, that gives me satisfaction. And then I can do other things in life. Okay? Yes, please.
Great. Thank you. Prasad, I really like the example of the mind being the transformer, where it can really expand, the desires that are, the trigger that is. So my question was around: is there a way to reverse this? Like when the impressions are coming in, can the mind be also trained, and how is that really happening? Of the mind demeaning or like diminishing the effect that is happening on our emotions.
That also happens by training. Say, for example, if we meet someone and say that person has some scars because of leprosy or something like that, now, we may be shocked. But if we are cultured, we will not show that shock, isn't it? So that is what is a particular raga or dvesha that is there. Dvesha is there that is very distributed. So it's that there are various levels of filters that can be created. So one filter is we don't take it in. One second filter is we take it in but we don't let it go. Krishna says Drishyato is the problem. Dhyayato is the problem. We cannot always move around with closed eyes in life. So when this animal movie had come up, there was this lot of discussion on the media. Oh, this is talking so much brutal violence, and people will become violent by that. And some people said, movies for entertainment. Nobody does in real life what is in movies. So it's just for entertainment. Well, it depends. There are people who say, people watch such violence and they become violent like that. See, the idea is that it is not that everybody who watches violent movies becomes violent. That doesn't happen. But the point is that's because everybody has some level of filters. So basically the filters can be at three levels. Filters is, first is, don't take in. So don't just watch such violent things. And this is especially required for children. Because children don't have internal filters. That's why even in very liberal countries, advertising directed towards children is banned, especially small children. Because they don't have the discerning capacity. Now, whether adults have discerning capacity is a different question. But still, the idea is don't take it. Then the second is don't dwell. Even if somebody has taken it, don't let it replay in you. There's also capacity to filter we have. Sometimes somebody may have bad memory or bad thought coming in, and they just redirect their consciousness somewhere else. And they may not disturb that. And then the third is don't act out. So we all have many desires or many urges. Say we will be angry with someone, we may feel like yelling at that person. But if we are if we are reasonably disciplined, reasonably cultured, like a husband and wife may be very upset each other, both of them want to lash at each other. But if the child is very they will next week, the child. That's culture. So there are three levels of filters that we have. Now we have to find out which is the best way we can protect ourselves. Sometimes just don't even look at it. Like somebody is alcoholic, inside they are very weak. So then just never go to a bar. If you go to a bar, then you will be ruined. Because once it comes in, it just grow very fast. But over a period of time, they keep repeatedly saying no to it. Then the internal desires, internal samskaras can also be overwritten and rewritten. But we have to find out at least the third filter has to work. Third filter doesn't work, then it's a big problem. So it's like porn use, some people say porn use is completely banned because people who use porn will become violent against women and others. Well, not everybody who uses porn becomes violent. But that does not mean that porn is harmless. It affects. Now, because people have culture, people have morality, people have laws, so that's why the images that are going in may not be coming out in the actions. But if the law breaks down, then who knows what animals, what beasts are there inside us and what beasts may come out. So why feed the beasts that are there inside? So the idea is that everybody needs filters. And which filters work best? The best is we don't take in. But we can't always do that. Then the second best is don't dwell. And even if something is sung, we just keep playing again and again and again. Okay, we can't avoid it, don't act. So Ajamil, he didn't intend. He's going along his own natural work. Most of you know the story of Ajamil. So he didn't intend to go out to just seeking some sense object. He was going on his job and his service to his father. And he saw something. So he took it in. Now what happened was he took it in. That you could say it's almost completely unintentional. But then he dwelled on it. And then you can say, maybe the image is so provocative. It just is the off button for our mind. So just put it up and just kept dwelling on it. Then you can say, okay, but he's acting. Even in acting out, okay, he just had an irresistible desire, I want to be with that particular woman. It's okay, he went and was with her. But once acting out is okay. After that, he decided that he will reject his chaste wife, he will abandon his parents, he will give up his Brahminical duty, and because nobody will want to have a priest in their ceremonies, a person who has abandoned their family and who is living with a woman like that. So then he had to rob and steal. So now, which is the boundary that he? Maybe the first boundary is the desire became so much that he had to go and be with her. We can say that. Normally, we should be able to control. But even if we give the benefit of the doubt over there. When we start acting out, there is some acting out, maybe circumstantial. It's just the desire came so much. I had no intention to drink alcohol, but everybody was there at the party and they told me to drink and I drank. So some acting out, initially might be circumstantial, but eventually it becomes intentional. Jaan ki basically. You know what you are doing and you are doing it, not just pulled by circumstances. So it's best that we regulate at the earliest. Okay? So thank you. Your last question.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class. You mentioned that vasana desires we can't do it for 24 hours vasanas. So, what makes us to find meaningful happiness means higher happiness means in my sense, I believe that whatever we do, whatever we desire for the being happy or pleasure. So if one gets some pleasures in while doing, so why transfer if they have to uh, go to the higher task?
Well, many reasons. First is that why not always go for pleasure? First of all, it is we have finite capacity. Nobody can keep eating constantly 24 hours a day. Sex is so much fantasized, but it cannot be done for throughout the day. You can keep stimulating and depleting oneself throughout the day, but it cannot be indulged throughout. So your capacity is finite. Then there is what is the law of diminishing returns. The same thing you do if it like gulab jamuns. First gulab jamun, wonderful. Second, wonderful. Third, wonderful. Fourth, okay. Fifth, enough. 10th, no. 20th, I feel like vomiting now. So eventually, I mean, some people it's not 20, some people it's 200. The point is that law of diminishing returns is going to come on ultimately. So that's also another reason. So now, of course, the problem is that desire subsides for some time, and it comes back again after some time. Okay, I may 10 gulab jamuns right now, nothing more. But after 6 hours, again I want 10 more. It can happen like that. But at least at that time it goes down. So just there are just physical limitations to how much we can enjoy. Again, of course, assuming that there are no financial other than social limitations. But even if they are there, even if they are not there, still there are other limitations which is avoidable. So there are of course social, cultural, financial limitations in how much a person can enjoy. Now beyond that, the thing is that these are ultimately they are dissatisfying or they are incompatible or insufficient because we are spiritual beings, we are souls, and the soul wants something more. So now, the spirituality is very much diminished. The person will not see anything, but we all want something more than this, and that's why people seek something. Sometimes they may find it, sometimes they may not find it. But generally, nobody can just go on enjoy forever. It just becomes so meaningless. It just becomes completely dead end. So because we are souls, we have spiritual potentials. We may not necessarily know Krishna and want to love Krishna, but we want to do something with love. So there is Sat, Chit and Ananda. So Ananda is a third feature. Sat means we want to exist. Nobody wants to die. We fight very hard to somehow continue to live. Anand is joy. We want to exist, we want joy. But Chit, when we have consciousness. With the consciousness, we want to make sense of things. When we are processing. If you are looking at what I am speaking and writing, and if I am just writing in some strange language, it doesn't make sense. What's going on? The whole point of Chit is to make sense. So we want to. So because of the conditioning, sometimes the soul's innate longing may not manifest much, but it is still very much there. And it will manifest at some level or the other sometime. So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. So just a quick announcement. Much of what I spoke today is from my book. So much of what I spoke today is from one of my latest books. You are not your mind. You are better. So there are 64 reflections on mind management based on the Bhagavad-gita. So that's one book. There are diagrams and the graphics also similar to what I have depicted over here. And there are a few other books you want to apply. So there is Gita for daily mindfulness, 365 articles based on the Bhagavad-gita. So this is one article per day, and each article is based on one verse from the Gita, and there's some questions which you can use for reflection. And this is various sections: how to overcome temptations, how to be more sensitive in our speech, how to be less ritualistic and more spiritual in our activities, how to face adversities, how to see God in our daily life. These are explained. So, Bhagavad-gita for daily mindfulness. So, this is what I mentioned. The Gita. This is the Gita from an applicational perspective. This is the Gita from a psychological perspective. This is you are not your mind. Then this is the Gita from a scientific perspective. Demystifying reincarnation. There's about 25 stories of children that remember their past lives. The mechanism of reincarnation described. What are ghosts? That's explained from a scientific perspective. And these two are Gita from a. So these two are books for those who are interested in going deeper into the Gita. This is based on broadly David Devshin's commentary. This is based on Chakravarti Path's commentary. This is the Gita from an analytical perspective. So if God controls everything, do we really have free will? No. If Krishna is equal to everyone, then why is he on the side of the Pandavas? If the modes do everything, then why are we held responsible for our actions? Questions like this are answered. In this book, there are 100 questions, answers, given with diagrams, 2-page articles. This is also 100 articles, but this is the Gita from a relational perspective. That is, how the Gita is not just a book of philosophy, but it's actually a book that expresses Krishna's love for Arjuna. And by extension, divinity's love for humanity, for all of us. So, the Gita seen in the light of the Krishna-Arjuna relationship based on the Mahabharata. That's what is explained in this book. So, if any of you like to have any of these books, they are available outside. I'll be here for a few minutes in case you want signature or anything. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.